Welcome to BattleTech in the Morning with Captain Nips. I'm Captain Nips, and this is still the BattleTech backer beta during the holiday season. So, I was doing a little bit of thinking, and I think it's worth doing a little bit of science to try and suss out just a smidgen better how the heat scale and heat sinks in the game work. Because it's still a little obfuscated. So I think if we dig a little bit, maybe we can get just an even little bit better feel for what's going on. Now,
welcome, Commander.
The best way to play around with something like this, in my mind, is to apply a bit of scientific method. And to do that here, I think what we want is known quantities and a variable that we can play with to try and compare against that known quantity. So, honestly, in my opinion, the best place we can figure this out is with the Hunchback 4P. Now, the Hunchback 4P, as all of you know at this point, having played thousands upon thousands of games of MechWarrior and BattleTech, is your laser Hunchback build. It comes with 8 medium lasers, a small in the head, which I'm going to ignore for the purposes of this video. I know no party lasers, but listen, science, it's important. So we've got 8 medium lasers, and we've got 23 single heat sinks. Now here's an important note. Actually, there's a couple important notes here. One, the way that this game treats engine-mounted internal heat sinks, i.e. heat sinks that do not need to be allocated to a critical slot, is different from tabletop. In this game, currently, in the beta, each mech has 10 internal engine heat sinks flat, and that is not variable. In tabletop, the number of engine heat sinks varies based on the weight of the engine. So, whatever. Why is this important? Well, if we look at the heat sinks that are equipped to the mech, and let's just pull this up because science requires tables. The cannon loadout of the 4P has 23 heat sinks. Per tabletop rules, 1 heat sunk per heat sink, minus 1 heat, gives you total heat dissipation of minus 23. With 8 medium lasers per tabletop at 3 heat apiece, if you were to fire all of them in a turn, you would be generating 24 heat. Thus, the cannon loadout, ignoring all other environmental factors, also ignoring movement, because movement in tabletop generates a little bit of heat, gives you a net heat value of +1. This means a Hunchback 4P standing still in tabletop would slowly generate heat to the point where it eventually would shut down. Now, in this game, BattleTech PC, backer beta, the mech still has 23 heat sinks. However, I'll get to asterisk that for a moment. We know that based on what's in the game files, each heat sink sinks 3 heat, so our total heat dissipation is minus 69. We have 8 medium lasers that each generate 8 heat, which is what is called out in the game file for medium lasers, generating 64 heat if we fire all of them. And again, ignoring environmental and movement factors, we have a heat net value of minus 5, which tells us that we would expect a Hunchback standing still, because we don't know about the movement heat. We don't know if it's there, or maybe it is, maybe it's not, whatever. Let's take that variable away by just standing still. A Hunchback standing still, turn over turn, firing all 8 medium lasers, should generate -5 net heat and thus never show up on the heat scale. Now, we know that this is not how the game works, because anyone that's played this game enough knows if you fire all your 8 medium lasers, you eventually crawl up onto the heat scale on that little bar in the bottom left, and we notice that the mech eventually will reach shutdown. So here's the note about engine heat sinks here. We know for fact that the heat sinks that are equipped in the critical slots, these ones right here, they are called out in the game files as sinking 3 heat apiece. What we do not know is the 10 engine heat sinks and what the dissipation rate of those heat sinks are. It may be 0. It may be 3. More than likely, it's somewhere between those two numbers. We know it's not 3 because these hunchbacks overheat, which that math showed us if they were 3 dissipation, it would never overheat. If it's 0, we would expect to be spiking on the heat scale much faster. Because if you basically remove 10 heat sinks from this build, 13 heat sinks versus the 8 medium lasers is you're heading straight to toasty town. So it's probably a value between 0 and 3. The question is, how much is that value? Can we figure this out? And the reason I picked the 4P, aside from all of what I just described numbers-wise, is that because there are 8 medium lasers, we can fine-tune the number of lasers we fire each round and try and zoom in exactly on where the heat neutral alpha is in terms of weapons fired heat generated versus heat sinks. Now, to help me out with this particular science experiment, I feel it's important to try and suss out some other things because, you know, science requires us to look at many different problems all at once. That's not true at all. So I have my stud squad here, but stud squad has had a little bit of adjustment. Stud number 1, who is hiding here. Now, all of the studs, I have gone back and changed their values. They're all going to be gunnery 8, which is as good a gunnery as you're going to get in this beta. So I figured it was only fair that I don't make them 10s or something like that. And piloting 5 and tactics 4. Now, the lowest value you'll see for a skill on one of the pilots in the beta right now is 3. But that doesn't help. So what I've decided to do is set 2 of my studs. Their guts are at 0. Stud number 3 has a guts of 5. And stud number 4 has a guts of 10. Now, the thing I'm trying to figure out here is guts directly relates and impacts where the red line is between not overheating, overheating, and then possibly shutting down. Although I think shutting down might be a hard limit bar that a hard limit line that we're not seeing on the heat scale that we see in game. So I want to see where the red line is based on the value of the guts and try and figure out, like, all right, what do we really want out of a guts pilot as well? Do we care? It seems like we should care. So that all said, I've put myself up against an enemy lance of quick draw 4Gs, which are the variant of the quick draw that has problems with heat because it has too many guns. It's got some medium lasers, it's got the SRM4, it's got the LRM-10, it's got jump jets, it's got single heat sinks, all the above. Now, to give myself some time to actually settle in and fire some lasers and do some science, I've given those mechs to a bunch of pilots that probably shouldn't be hitting the broadside of a barn. Today we're going to head out to River Crossing during, let's say, the rainy day. And let's see what happens. Now, all good science requires data collection. So one of the things I'm going to be doing as I am going through turn by turn, I'm going to be tracking manually on a sheet of paper to try and figure out what I've fired, what my heat should be, and then look at what the heat scale is doing.
Command interface initiated.
So let's get this underway.
What's up, Commander? Yeah? Yeah?
Now, it just occurred to me, I picked rainy day, and now I literally am unsure whether that applies in an environmental heat scaling factor, which, lords. But we should still be able to get a relatively good sense of what's going on, even if there is an environmental factor in play, because that environmental factor should not change during the course of the match, so it is a static value, and so that's just going to bias up or down where we're at. Also, why are my studs wounded? No, they're not wounded, even though they've got a red icon. That's weird. Interesting. Maybe that's a consequence of 0 guts.
Yeah? What can I do you for?
Poor constitution. You know, it's important to keep
Be
your
there in a jiff.
it's important to keep your pilots in good health. You know,
Oh, looky here.
good diet,
More
exercise, all of those things. Also, that's weird. We got right into initiative, and I missed that we had gone right into initiative. All right, so worth peeking at things here. Stud 3, his red line is about a little over 3/4 of the way up the heat scale.
What's up, Commander?
My 2 pilots with guts 0, the red line is halfway up the heat scale.
Something I
And
can do?
Stud 4, his red line is actually arguably off the heat scale. So
Yeah? What can I do you for?
that right there gives us a good indication of something. Let's just continue to send our clone squad into the fray, and honestly, I just need to... I want to pick a spot
What's up,
and
Commander?
then plant and start firing lasers so I can get a sense for heat generation here. This guy... you're all woefully slow.
On the move. Yeah?
Stud number 3 taking some serious hits. That's okay.
Ha! You got nothing.
We've got guard up. The guarding advance, I think, is going to become a very important tactic if guard and bulwark does not get a tweak before the final campaign game launch, before the full release of the game. Even if it does get a nerf, let's say it gets nerfed down to 25% damage reduction instead of 50%. It's still a reasonably good thing to do if you don't know where your engagement ranges are going to fall.
Something I can do?
All right, so the other thing that I do not want to do is I do not want to stand in the river, simply for the fact that that's going to screw up the heat calculations here. So I'm going to pick this nice cozy spot in the forest at the edge of the water. I've got line of sight on one guy.
Piece of cake.
So we take a move. There's a quick draw. Small laser is not going to engage, but we're going to disable it anyway. Now this is stud number 3 with a guts of 5. And we're going to fire 8 medium lasers for a total of plus 24. No, is that right? No, it's 8 heat. So plus 64. Which immediately is putting us up onto the visible part of the heat scale.
I'll
Pow,
make
pow, pow.
that.
And it jumps right up on there. Now remember, if we assume that internal engine heat sinks on these mechs are at the 3 heat dissipation, we should have generated a net -5 heat. Again, net heat -5. Even with that move, which I can't imagine generates that much heat. Let's go down to stud number
What can I do
1.
you for? Consider it done.
Now, stud number 1, with his fantastic gut score of 0, we're generating about the same level of heat. In fact, it should be generating exactly the same level of heat. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take one of the lasers off. 2 of the lasers off. The trick here is what I'm trying to find, where is the heat I want to find the heat neutral point. Or at least, how close can I get to the heat neutral point by toggling on and off lasers? So, you know, I'm going to start by firing all 8. I'm going to get all of my hunchbacks up to this point on the heat scale, and then I'm going to start tinkering with
Oh, you want some of
how many
this?
lasers do I need to turn off to cause it to be heat neutral. And hopefully, in the meanwhile, these mechs will all start to move down and give me
What's
more
up,
targets
Commander?
to fire on. In fact, to help out with that, let's switch targets a little bit. Let's start by firing over here. Again, heat scale, 0 guts.
I got him. Yeah.
Stud number 4, who doesn't believe in heat scales.
Piece of cake.
Dude,
Oh, nice
tearing
hit,
things
that
up
one.
over here.
Nice hit.
Yeah, I agree. Sumo clone number 4. And we're already getting into melee. Okay. That's just uncouth.
Oh boy, that's bad.
Also, now this lead hunchback has been reduced by a medium laser.
I broke my collarbone.
So, ooh, it might be reduced by more than that if these guys all gang up on him. Really, really looking to kill that guy, aren't they?
Internal damage, Commander.
Alright, but that's fine. We got through the turn. Now, oh. That's right. One of them is going to get to go in this
Something I
phase.
can do.
Alright, so let's start with
What's up, Commander?
stud number 4. Now, stud number 4 is going to fire on this target. No. It's going to fire on this target. There we go. Checking the heat. And in fact, I need to mark down, I did full alpha with every single mech that turn. And just a little bit of math saying we should be at -5, which clearly we're not. We're clearly at some positive value of heat because we're on the heat scale. So, we're here. Let's see if we can find heat neutral. 1, 2, 3. Now, it looks like removing a 4th laser makes us heat negative. 3 is slightly heat positive. Alright, so this is stud number 4. And if we fire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 medium lasers, we are going to be generating 48. Okay. But if we fired 5, we'd be generating 40. Alright, so let's do that.
I'm gonna make some trash. Sorry, dummy.
What's this one on the left going to do? Probably drill my 3rd guy down. Wow, it didn't kill him.
Oh,
He's going to get an opportunity to stand up and do some work. Oh, and shut down target. That's nice. Alright,
something I can do.
let's take a moment to ruin this guy over here. what just happened here? Why did... Alright, so stud number 1 isn't going to fire any guns today because apparently when I turned, I did not turn enough somehow to have a line of sight to the mech that is standing literally 2 hexes away. So, let's just take a look at the heat scale for pilot number 1. If we're dissipating, if we're dissipating 69 heat and we're generating 0, we should be technically at minus 74, also known as 0. We should definitely be at 0. Actually, this is not a bad opportunity to see if... Okay, so I fired my guns last turn. I generate 64 heat. My heat sinks, if they were all dissipating the same rate, should have dissipated all of that heat. It did not because we went on the heat scale. So now the question is the heat remaining left over from last turn small enough that my heat sinks remove all of it this turn? And again, we don't know for sure because the graphic shows the heat scale reducing off the bar.
Yeah?
The only way to know for sure is if when we come back the next turn and light up our guns again, if it goes back to the same place on the heat scale, which kind of going to have to eyeball it, but we can kind of figure it out. Alright, so here we go.
On the move.
We'll move here. I actually line up this shot proper. There we go. Now, pilot number 2 also still having problems. First of all, let's... So the problem here is I don't know... I did not look to see what the heat on a small laser is. But we might be able to use this. I might be able to do some back math to figure this out. Because what we want to try and find is where is heat neutral. Heat neutral is kind of hard to find. So we're back to firing 6. If we do that, plus 40 should be at plus 40. Let's see, 48 minus our cooling, 69 should put us at minus 21, which would be minus 26, but we're clearly not sinking heat here. So, I think, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to need to do to really, really drill down into this and find out where we're at in terms of heat balances is to make some custom mechs. So that'll probably have to come in another video. For now, it looks like if you have 23 heat sinks dissipating 69 heat, let's just write this down on my pad of paper. 23 heat sinks dissipating 69 heat versus 6 medium lasers at 8 heat is only 48 generated. But we're generating, according to the screen right here, we're actually generating just a smidgen. It's kind of hard to tell, but given that each medium laser is worth 8 heat, judging how much that bar is moving as I toggle this laser on and off, if that total length of bar is 8 heat, and that smidgen of yellow there looks to me to be about 1/4 of that total extra heat added. So that would be about 2. Let's call it +2. So, if the medium lasers, if 6 medium lasers at 48 heat is generating about +2 heat over heat neutral, then that means our heat sinks are only sinking 46 instead of 69. Now, if we have 23 heat sinks, let's remove 10 engine heat sinks. That gives us 13 externals at 3 apiece. That's 39 total heat sunk, which means our engine heat sinks are only sinking like 7 heat for 10 heat sinks. So something's clearly not quite right there. Again, the math is a little bit wobbly, not gonna lie. This is not perfect, but that's why we do science. We're gonna try and hone in on this. So I'm gonna write this down, so just for reference, engine heat sinks appear to be doing approximately 0.7 heat dissipated per engine heat sink. Now, having learned this, let's light this guy up. Let's not light him up that much though.
You like that?
That's right, I can knock you down just like you can knock me down, punk. Oh, it's going in for a melee attack on my downed mech. That's just mean. That's just mean.
Hey, getting our asses down here.
Alright. Gloves off. Wow. Wait, what was that? Alright, that was just weird. So let's finish out this mess.
Yeah. Right here.
Let's find our pilot with all of the heat scale to work with. Let's throw him into reverse. And even though this target has guarded a bulwark, it's only got 20 structure left center torso, so I'm just going to drill him out. No focus required. There we go. 95's to hit. Heat scale is never going to be an issue with this pilot. So we're just going to keep lighting this guy up. That should have... yeah, there we go. Should have gotten the job done.
Enemy down.
Battle mech power-up detected.
Something I can do.
Alright, now... it seems only fair and only right and only proper that since they did such a terrible job on me that last turn, this quick draw is being hyper aggressive. We're gonna focus this guy down from behind and just murder him. Yep, kid gloves are off, and heat scale, I think we've gotten what we need informationally from this match, so let's just go ahead and ruin these targets. I was hoping for more, not gonna lie. That was a little weak.
Yeah.
Can we get another shot at the rear? Yes, we can.
Okay.
Although this pilot has bunk for guts, so we're just gonna send it straight into overheat town.
That's a critical hit. Watch the flank. Watch the flank.
You're fine.
I may need a new mech soon.
Really do not understand what's going on with that particular mech.
Damage is minor. Right here.
Take a look at this guy. Legs are pretty beat up because of previous death from above attacks. Let's go light him up from... We actually want to hit him on the left side. So, that's not great. That's... Wow, I can get behind it? Alright. Well, you know what they say. If you can do it from behind, get down on that. Also, pilot number 1 with no guts to speak of. Gonna tickle the red line a little bit there. But that's fine.
That's the kill. Hey, they're coming around the side. Hey, oh, they're hitting my stuff. Yeah? Right here.
Since this pilot has all the guts and all the heat scale to work with, we're just going to push it all the way up.
You got it.
Let's see if I can get close to that red line and figure out what happens when you have a red line that's basically at the end of the heat scale bar. See if there is any space between overheat, going from no critical heat to overheat to shutdown heat.
Something I can do. I'm on the move.
Meanwhile, send this guy this way, and we're just going to bleed heat for a turn.
Yeah?
Alright. Nope, wrong pilot.
Something I can do.
There we go. Here's where we want. So, if we light this guy up, just to take a quick look. Yeah, should be dropping in this turn. Clearly we're into shutdown. So what happens as we turn off some weapons? Small laser? Nope. Medium? Nope. Alright, so back to that 6 medium laser lineup where we're getting just a smidgen of heat. Again, looking like maybe about a quarter of the heat generated from that one laser. It's kind of hard to tell. It might be 3/5 or 3/8, slightly more than a quarter. It's hard to tell. All right, but the important thing is that we can't really, at least with this weapon loadout, we can't really find. I'm either shutting down or not shutting down. So let's fire 6. Actually, you know what? Let's stick the small laser on there too. Get the extra little bit of heat gen. Probably going to kill this quick draw, honestly. Yeah, alright.
Hey, watch the heat.
That's interesting. Getting heat warnings even though... Woo, clearly was not a... Oh, no, he's not going to have problems with heat generation now.
Right here.
And since that's the case, let's just get down here and use what we got. Yeah, and because now we're missing the right hunch, which removes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus the right arm, 7. The left hunch still has, or the left side, I should say, not left hunch, still has all the heat sinks. And I think they're in the legs as well. Yep, got some in the legs. We did lose some from the right side, but not nearly as much. So this mech is going to be
I'll make 'em dead.
heat negative for the rest of the game as it fires its lonely pair of lasers.
Yeah?
Take a look at this guy, see where he's at. Okay. Since we're here, no reason not to get behind him.
Stacking.
Woo! That's some hot damage from behind.
Right here. Something I can do.
All right, let's see if we can tickle this red line.
Right here.
All right, so let's line up this shot. Let's look at our heat scale. Clearly overheating to shut down with all the guns on. Let's start removing medium lasers. Nope. Nope. All right, so we get to here. Let's remove the small laser and put the medium laser back on. We're just short of the red line. Just a smidgen short. Now, based on the graphic presentation of this heat bar, let me just back this laser off for a sec. So, it's got these little angled bits to make it look graphically pretty, but it certainly does not seem that the filling of the bar cares about that little graphical bit. So, with this laser turned on, you notice the very end of the bar starts to fill in yellow, but it does not give the warning for a shutdown. So, small laser, if I turn this on, yeah, we go straight into taking an app town. So we're probably only probably less than 5 net heat away from wherever that line is. I'd be curious to know what the total heat value is required for a shutdown, because that seems to be shared across all mechs regardless of heatsink loadout or design or pilot. Yeah, so we're gonna fire this. We're gonna keep tickling this heat scale. Probably gonna kill the mech this time. Probably. Yeah, okay. Also means I'm probably not going to get another salvo off with this pilot, so I'm not...
It's so hot in here.
And there it goes again, giving the heat warning. Huh.
Yeah?
Curiouser and curiouser.
You got it.
Pew pew.
I'm gonna make some trash.
Not with 2 tiny lasers, you're not.
Something I can do.
Now your buddy with all his guns, he's certainly going to have a field day here. Around the corner.
I'm there.
Alright. You know what? Just to be sure, let's get out of this match.
Some of this, huh?
And, you know, get done.
Aye, aye.
Because I think we've learned about as much as we can from the stock loadouts and
Objective complete.
tools available. Ooh, there's some arms flying.
Down.
We've learned all we can from the tools currently available to us. So, what have we learned here today? I think what we've learned is that definitively the 10 engine heat sinks that are mounted in these mechs are not, they are definitely not dissipating at 3 heat per sink. Because if they were, no hunchback at any point in this match barring environmental factors, which River Valley I would not have, I'd expect it to be considered a mild map. At no point would any of these hunchbacks be overheating. Clearly that's not the case. Clearly they're generating more heat than the heat sinks can keep up with. So then what do we learn next from that? I think we've learned that approximately, so let's go back to that again. Bring up the table. If 6 medium lasers were generating a delta, a change on the heat scale bar of approximately, okay, let's rephrase that. When we were on the heat scale and could see the difference turning off one laser and turning it back on, going from heat negative, where with the laser off, part of that red bar was transparent, to turning the laser on and the heat being applied and the end of the bar being yellow. It looked to be about, and this is again eyeballing it, about 1/4-ish of the total heat being generated by that single laser. One laser generates 8 heat. 1/4 of 8 is about 2. Anyway, the long and short of this is that 6 lasers generating 48 heat generates a tiny smidgen more than neutral heat. So, again, assuming that the 10 engine heat sinks are not dissipating at value, but the 13 additional ones are. And again, all you gotta do, scroll down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13, let's assume that they're working at face value, 3 heat apiece. 13 times 3 is 39. We're generating about 48. We are generating 48 heat from 6 medium lasers. 48, 39. Did I do that right? 48 heat puts us at plus 2 heat. Actually, I think I did that math wrong. 48 heat generated minus 39 is 9 heat net that now the 10 engine heat sinks need to take care of, but they're not. They're actually generating, so like this 9 heat left over. It's not heat neutral. Yeah, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like each engine heatsink, air quotes engine heatsink, is sinking like between around 0.7. Again, this math is confusing and not helpful. But we know for sure that the engine heatsinks are not operating at full listed value as compared to critical heatsinks. So, we've learned that much, at least. So now, hopefully, the next bit of science will be zeroing in on exactly what that value is, which means we need to do something similar to what we've done today, which is get a stack of identical weapons with smaller increments and see where exactly the increments line up and then are heat neutral. So, look forward to that. 8 rounds, 30 minutes, 22 seconds. The slowest 8 rounds in the history of BattleTech because math. Math is not your friend. Math is your friend. Ladies and gentlemen, math is your friend. Come on. Get into math. But for now, I'm done with the math. I am, as always, Captain Nips. I'm hoping all of you out there have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you are. Have a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll see all of you in the next video.